I didn't think we could accomplish this special session. I thought there was a good chance it would break down. I thought, given the number of bills, there was no way we're going to be able to do it in 3 days. I thought the Joint Committee, which I served on, did a remarkable job. That was a big surprise. We got along very well. So, am I disappointed? I don't have much to be disappointed about right now, in the sense that, given what we accomplished in such a short period of time under very adverse circumstances, I'll just take it for what I can get. I'm not thinking about what we didn't do or whether we did something bad. So,
Senator Courtney, I wondered if you could address, many people have been struggling to access unemployment benefits through the state's employment department. And I wondered, maybe you could explain why there weren't any measures to kind of expedite those payments taken through legislation.
Funny, I don't like to say this, but when you look at the different issues, it didn't seem to be, what's the matter? It just didn't seem to get anywhere near the attention. It wasn't talked about that much, even by the media. But it's interesting you said that, because that is one of the policy issues we might get into the next session. Also, once we got into police accountability, that dominated everything. That it just shut down discussions about anything but that. Now, we did do some other things, but believe me, that became totally dominant. I'm convinced that you wouldn't have had this session without the police accountability measures. It just was that kind of thing. And of course, another reason you had it is because a lot of the bills that we had worked so hard in February, we never got to pass for reasons that you all know. So I think, if I had to say it, I do think that, another thing I think, and I'm probably going to get in trouble with this, and I think I said it to my staff a moment ago, I don't think the legislature will be the same body it once was. I think we were very much an inferior body to the governor and the Supreme Court. I really did. I gave speeches. Because of this session, I think we're going to get a little ornery. I think we're going to be much more willing to really push back on the other branches. And I know you don't probably know what I'm talking about, but I just think so. I think they're feeling strength now that they can do things, and they should do things. So I'm going to watch that change. I think you're having a change in the balance of power in the three branches, because the legislature has really been lagging, in my opinion. And I think that this is a different day now as a result of what has just happened. I've seen many legislators very proud and acting like, take that, we did it. And nobody thought we could. Now, maybe that's arrogance, and maybe you won't agree in your editorials, and you don't see it that way. But I see it that way, and I've been around a long time. So it's interesting, because Connor asked some of a question like that. And you may not know what I'm talking about, but from a political science standpoint, I think this moment had to come for the legislature, or she eventually would disappear.
In all likelihood, this pandemic is going to be with us through to the next long legislative session. Did you learn anything through this special session as far as how to legislate during a pandemic that you're going to carry with you until next year?
I learned how to talk with a mask on, and I don't say that to be funny. That was very difficult for me, especially in my position. I learned that no room you're in can you just go in like you go in. You have to look around. You have to be aware of people in a way you were never aware before. I learned that we'll never be together quite like we were in the old days. Like, I'll never be able to have somebody sit beside me on the Senate floor. That chair was removed. I must say, I walked over to the speaker because they were behind. I went up to her. I says, "What's going on?" And she looked, and I looked out on her chamber, and it's like, I've never been to Congress back in D.C., but I understand there's speeches given and nobody's there. You don't know it because they just show it on TV, the person speaking. Well, here was a person speaking on a major bill. I looked out there was no more than 3 people on the floor. And I found that very sad, but I understood what was going on. I think that's a whole different way to legislate now. We don't have the audiences. Now, the Senate did well. We had audiences there. But I do think that when you're speaking on issues and you don't have the audience there, you don't have your fellow legislators there, I don't think it's the same speech. So I've learned that world is changing. I still think that we don't this is our first time at this. I think there will be changes in July because I think we learned some things. Where the arrows go is very confusing to people. We didn't do well in explaining how they all had. If I wanted to get on the second floor, I had to go up the third floor and come over, and it was just very confusing. So, you know, I also learned that you know, the issue of one of the things I'm concerned about is this thing. I guess I'm the only one who can introduce bills in a special session. I'm starting to wonder about that because I'm not so sure the special session has changed forever by this special session. And I thought about that the other night. I was just talking to myself with my dog on my lap. And I think from a political science standpoint, the special session is now a mini general session. I really believe, and I believe because of this, what we did here, that will become the new standard. That's just what I think. And so I think the idea of having a lot of measures will become quite the norm. And so you're going to have to handle it. You're going to have to really know what you're doing unless you want to be there for several weeks or months. So in some ways, it might become a mini February session or short session. Now, nobody likes to hear that, but I could swear when I was thinking about it the other night, it's got all the signs. So those are some of the things that I learned, Connor, about what we just went through.